Hi, I'm Len with Hobby Universe, and today I'm going to be installing a wood rack in my wood shop. Bought this house about a year ago. Haven't had my wood shop put together yet, so ever since I moved from the old house to the new house, I've not had my wood shop in usable condition. I just put everything down into the basement, let it sit. Had a lot of renovations to do in the new house. I'm far enough along on those. I was able to justify some time to come down into the wood shop and start getting that put together. The basement was a big, wide open space, so I built some walls. This is a new wall. There's some new walls around the corner, and it's just given me a lot more room. I'm really excited to get everything put together and organized. Right now, it looks like a bomb went off, so I'm not going to show you the rest of the shop until I get things organized. If you can see what it looks like behind the camera, it's absolutely horrible. But when I get it all put together, I will take some time and I'll just do a quick walk around and show you how things are organized and kind of give you a rundown of what equipment I have and so on. But these wood racks I brought from my old wood shop at the old house, and I reinstalled them here, but somehow, magically, I don't know how it happens, but I ended up with more lumber between the time when I moved from the old house to this new house. So I need additional room to store that lumber. Each of these shelves or layers, levels, are rated for up to 100 pounds. And some of them are under that. Some are, I'm going to guess, are pretty close. This is Bolivian rosewood, some really heavy, thick stuff. So this is really heavy. This is like canary. So I could probably get creative and almost play a game of Tetris and move things around and take advantage of every little gap there is. But I'd rather not do that for a couple reasons. One, like I said, I don't want to overload the rack. If I put too much weight on it and it were to come down and land on top of me, I think that would be a pretty bad day. I also don't like the idea of having everything crammed in so tight that I struggle to access certain things. And I don't know if it's just me, but it always seems like whenever I'm after a certain piece of wood or a certain board, somehow it's always the bottom one, and I got to move everything out of the way. And it's a real hassle. Some kind of weird voodoo magic or something. I don't know what it is, but anyway, so I'm looking for a little extra room. Give me some storage options. So this is where the new rack is going to go. It's just it's fairly inexpensive. I got this off Amazon. It is Bora, and the one I had previously was Portamate, not affiliated. I don't have any relationship with any of these people. It's just the reason I ended up with this new Bora is because it's the exact same color and design as this existing Portamate. In fact, the components are the same, everything's the same. So I believe there's a manufacturer out there making them, and then these guys are just putting their name on them. So regardless, it's going to be the same color, same design, so it'll be consistent, which is what I'm looking for. I'll install that here, and some of the bigger wood I have, I'll use on the lower shelves. That way I'm not reaching up over my head with some of the heavier stuff. So I'm going to get started on installing that. I'll show you the process. It really shouldn't take too long. It's fairly straightforward, and let's get going. So I've already run into a bit of a snag before I even got started. I unboxed all the items, set them out on the floor just to kind of do a quick inventory, and immediately noticed that I only have 8 of these horizontal arms. This is a 6-tier system, 2 arms per tier, so I should have 12 of those. I only have 8. Initially, I thought maybe they sent me the wrong set. Maybe they sent me the 4-tier system, but it turns out that's not the case. The box says it is the 6th tier. The documentation says it's the 6th tier. And something else I noticed when I received it, this is actually the box everything came in. This is a really flimsy box. And I noticed it was taped together, and I don't think that was from the factory. The end's damaged. Actually, both ends are damaged. This end definitely came open and was retaped. So what probably happened was it popped open during transit, and 4 of these fell out. They were shrink wrapped, 4 per sleeve, I guess you'd call it. So somewhere out there, maybe on the back of a FedEx or UPS truck somewhere, this is the balance of my arms. I'm going to contact Bora, and I'm going to ask them to send me the additional 4 arms. But honestly, now that I think about it, how low the system is going to be, if I were to use all 6 tiers, the bottom 2 would be, one would be almost at ground level and the other one would be just above. I actually think I'm going to leave the bottom 2 tiers off regardless. One, because that would be really hard to get down there and get the stuff picked up, but also I picture myself banging my shins and getting pretty angry on a regular basis as I try to approach this shelf. So for now, I'm just going to leave those bottom 2 off. I don't have a choice anyway. and we'll do the 4 shelves that I can put up. For the first step, you're going to need to identify the top and bottom as well as the front and back of the vertical bars. And that's pretty easy to do. The back, or the side that'll go against the wall, only has 3 holes in it. On the front, you have those same 3 holes. That is the holes that the hardware attaching it to the wall will go through, as well as a lot of these smaller holes. And they're only on the front, or the side that'll be facing you once this is installed. So we know this is the front. And then also you need to understand which is the top and which is the bottom. The top is going to have one of the small holes located right around 2 inches. I didn't measure it, but it looks like about 2 inches from the top. On the bottom, one of those small holes is only going to be about 1/4 to 1/2 an inch from the bottom. So we know this is going to be the bottom, and we know this is the front. That'll allow us to get started. Now, per the instructions, if I actually had all those little arms like I'm supposed to, the first screw would go here. Because what we'll do is we'll put the screw on, and then the bar will slide down, and then the screw will stop it from going any further. Well, we're not going to be doing that on this installation. I only have 4 tiers rather than the 6 I'm supposed to. So I'm going to leave off the bottom one and the very top one. So I'm going to actually start here rather than here. But again, if you have all 6, you're going to want to start here. You're going to take one of the small screws provided. This is the only hardware that the manufacturer provides. And you're going to insert it into one of the small holes. Doesn't have to be crazy tight, you just get it snug. If you go too tight, you can strip it out and it'll forever be loose. Then you're going to take one of the arms and you're going to want to identify the bottom of the arm. And that's easy to do, again, because you've got this little notch right here. That's going to tell us it's the bottom. The top doesn't have that. Another way I can tell is, this thing's labeled, but not all the arms are actually labeled, so you can't depend on that. So you just look for that notch. That's going to be the bottom of the arm, and that's going to somewhat engage the top of that screw that we just inserted. So once you have that, you're going to insert the arm all the way down until it gets to that screw. And it'll just kind of rest against that. And that arm is installed. So we're going to continue to do that same thing for the other 3 arms on this vertical and on the second one. So I'm going to put a screw here, there, and then another one right there. And then we'll slide the arms on. We'll go ahead and do that right now. So that first side went together, no problems, exactly as I would have expected. The second side, apparently that is not going to be the case. These arms are refusing to go down, or at least without some serious encouragement, onto the vertical bar. So I'm going to have to apparently bang these down, which in turn is shaving off the paint of the vertical bar. So I'm not super pleased about that. The others just slid on effortlessly. So while it's together, that's not how it's supposed to happen. You can see now, got some rub marks, paint's all boogered up on the sides here. That's poor quality right there. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to keep going. I'm just going to literally hammer this thing together. Well, that's it. I got it together. Again, pretty displeased that I had to hammer it together. I have these other racks that I built, and they went together with no issue. This arm over here, no issue. This one, not great. It'll work. I'm sure it's going to hold the lumber up just fine. I'm just disappointed that I had to actually hammer it together. With the shelves assembled, we're now ready to mount these to the wall. I already marked the wall where this is going to mount. You're going to want to make sure, if you're doing this on a drywall studded wall, which is what I'm doing, you want to have good solid contact with the stud. You're going to want to be in the center of the stud. These things can support a lot of weight, so you want to be solid. I already knew where my stud was at because A, the existing rack I put on previously is in the stud, but also I can see the line from the drywall seam between the two sheets, and I'm actually fine with that. I didn't spend a lot of time doing the drywall, wasn't super concerned with aesthetics, primarily just wanted solid, nice walls up, as well as a nice bright white finish, which is what I have. But I marked the area anyway, just so as I'm installing it'll be easier to see. Another thing you've got to do is you have to use these spacers, because you can see the back of the arm sticks out beyond the face of the vertical bar. What these spacers do is, if you put them on there, it'll actually make this a little bit more even. These stick out probably a 1/16 of an inch beyond this. So when your screw comes in, it can pull tight, and these arms will not interfere with you getting a nice tight connection to the wall. So I'm going to go ahead and take my screw, insert it through here, through this little spacer, and that'll help hold this on, and then I can get it positioned. Now the screws I'm using are overkill for this application. I have these 1/4 inch by 4 inch long Tapcons. The only reason I'm using these is they were left over from another project. They're a bit on the long side. I could probably get away with maybe like 3.5 inch, but this is what I'm going to use. Again, just had them sitting around, no sense wasting them. So a couple things I want to mention. The first is, when you put these brackets on, you're going to want to make sure that the spacer is properly oriented. Pretty self-explanatory when you see it. Also, don't have your hand behind here. Don't hold the bar like this when you're doing it. If your fingers are behind there and that thing sucks in, there may or may not be enough room for your fingers between the bar and the wall, and you could end up getting pinched. And I'm going to leave it a little bit loose. And the reason for that is, when I go down through and I do the other 2 screws, I want to have the ability to move this as needed back and forth, just so I can make sure we're perfectly level. And then once we have the other screws in, I'll come back through and I'll just tighten them all up a little bit. You don't want to over tighten them. They don't have to be crazy tight. You just want to get them nice and snug so that this thing is pulled against the wall and you're good. We slide the other spacers in. We'll start with the next one down. That up where it needs to be. Insert the screw, make sure we go through the spacer. I'm actually going to do the one below it as well. Just like that. So now I'm going to check my marks. Over a little bit, right about there. That looks really good. So we're going to go ahead and drive these home. Another great thing about the Tapcons, you can use a socket wrench on the drill adapter. Make life a lot easier. Nice and tight. A little bit too tight maybe, but that's okay. Then this one we left loose so we can move it around. We're going to get that one tightened up. And we are good. So that side is done. I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same thing to the other side. Tighten these up. Last one. And we are in good shape. That rack is ready to go. So I'm going to start bringing in some of the lumber, and I'll show you what it looks like once I get it all loaded up. I wanted to take a quick minute here and just talk about the spacers and a couple other things. So these are the spacers I was talking about, and this is why they're important. It allows the screw to go through the vertical bar, through the spacer, into the wall, into the stud. And you know, you've got a very nice tight, I mean, this is very, very firm. These are not tight against the wall, and they're not supposed to be. So that spacer allows just barely any gap between the wall and the back of this arm, and the same is true for all of these. That's what you want. That way this screw goes through into the wall. It's going to be a nice, tight, secure connection. Another thing is determining screw length. So you're going to have to figure that out on your own, but I will tell you that a 2-inch screw would not do it. 2 inches seems like a pretty long screw, but you got to take this into consideration. You have 1.5 inches between the face of this vertical bar and the wall. Plus, if your drywall is a 1/2 inch thick, assuming, now you've already got 2 inches gone that the screw has to pass through before it even engages a 2x4. So I was looking for 3.5 inch screws for my installation, but I went with 4-inch again. That's just what I had available to me. So that means I actually have 2 inches of screw engaged into that stud. That's fine. I'm good with that. It's not going anywhere. It's going to be a nice solid connection. So again, when you're considering screw length, whether you're going into concrete or into a studded wall, whatever it is, make sure you consider, mine is 1.5 inches. I don't know what model or what brand system you have, but figure out what that is and consider that in the thickness of your drywall when you're selecting screws. And I'm going to start bringing in some of this lumber from the other room. This stuff is heavy. This is I call it Bolivian rosewood. I don't know if that's actually the name for it or not. I've heard there's some issues getting actual Bolivian rosewood. I was told that's what it was, but it's also called Murado. So I'm actually not sure if they're the same. But it is crazy heavy and absolutely beautiful. This is why I end up with more lumber than I need and more lumber than I actually have projects for. I go to the store looking for a certain piece, and then I see something like this. This piece of Murado is absolutely beautiful. The grain on it is outstanding. If you just look at the grain on that, it is absolutely ridiculous. It's just beautiful. There's just so much contrast, so much character. So this will be used to make either an urn or a special keepsake box. And with that, we are done installing this new wood rack. I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out. I have the balance of my lumber on the rack, and now that everything's up on the rack, I'm seeing I actually have 2 additional levels with no lumber on them. So I feel like that's a really good excuse for me to go out and hit the local lumber store and try to find some more unique woods. And you know, I'd mentioned it on the Murado. Here's another piece I came across. I mean, if you just look at the grain on this and just look at how beautiful that is, absolutely ridiculous. I don't know if I'm the only one that geeks out over wood like this, but I absolutely cannot wait to make something out of this. And I'm working on a fairly unique keepsake box, something like you've never seen. I promise you that, or I'd be really surprised if you'd seen anything like it. It's really cool. I've got a design in mind. I'm going to go ahead and work on that. If it doesn't suck when I'm done, I will go ahead and share that video on my channel. And with that, I want to say thank you for watching the video. I hope you learned something, and I hope you liked it. Maybe you hated it. That's okay too. If you would take a second, please hit the like button. If you haven't already done so, subscribe to my channel, Hobby Universe, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.